David Uosikkinen in the Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.
I'm Andy Weinberg, and welcome to episode 122 of the David Uosikkinen in the Pocket podcast. Back here with Dave and Fred. It's been a little while since we've done one of these. I know, Dave, you've been dealing with some medical stuff, but all good now? You look good? You feel good?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I had my knee surgery on April 5th, and that went along. I mean, I had Dr. Nick DeNubli, who worked on the Sixers, and he did all these athletes' knees, so you'd think he'd do a great job. So, he did. But I was like, I played over the weekend. I played a 45-minute set, and that went well. And but on the way home, I was driving. I'm thinking, man, I need to pull over and take a nap. And it was like 12 o'clock, and it was like noon. So so I definitely need to get back in shape again, and almost like the Wind kind of deal, playing drums.
You sounded great. It was with Smash Palace at the Haddonfield Music Festival on a beautiful, at least at that point it wasn't raining, and it was a great set, and you guys all sounded good. And the next hour is going to make you feel good too, because we got an amazing guest that's going to be, excited. We're going to call him up here in just a minute. His name is Alan Childs. He's an amazing drummer. He's played with David Bowie, John Waite, Julian Lennon. He's got some great stories. And Dave, you and him go way back, pre-Hooters days, because you had the same drum teacher, which I know I think would be a great time to start the conversation. But I was talking to Alan before we had him on, and he said that's the last time he saw you. So
I think that last time I saw Alan was Carmine Rojas invited me to sound check. He was playing with John Waite, and they were playing, I think it was the Tower Theater, and I came over in the afternoon, and it was Chuck Kentis and John Waite, obviously Alan, Carmine, and I think Earl Slick was playing guitar, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you can remind him of that story.
Yeah,
remind him of that story right now. Let's get him on. Let's bring on
Alan.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, how you doing?
Good. How are you? I totally forgot about the Tower Theater.
Oh, you know what? That was, so it was John, because I couldn't remember if it was, because I think I saw you also play with Julian Lennon, because you did that with Carmine as well. So I and I'm not sure if you played the Tower there, but because I couldn't remember which of the bands you were playing with that I saw at Soundcheck at the Tower. But now looking back, I think it was John Waite, and you guys were just coming in and walking around checking everything out.
Wow.
But yeah, and he was referring to going way back. I mean, it just happened. Alan and I both took drum lessons off a guy named Joe Casadas in New York City that had a drum shop called the Modern Drum Shop. And I'm sure, and I'm almost positive that we might have had our lessons like, I was walking in as he was walking out, or I was walking out as he's walking in, at some point. So, but going way back, for me, it was like 80, 81, 82, 79, around that time, and I think that's around the time you were taking lessons as well, right, Alan?
Well, I think it was earlier.
Was it earlier you were doing that in the 70s?
I believe so, because the reason I went to Joe, I was already playing.
Right.
But I got called for a recording session.
Right.
And I didn't know the people calling me. And I got to the studio. It was one of my first recording sessions. Yeah. And I'm looking around the studio and I'm like, who called me? And I'm looking at the musicians and I start to recognize them. They're like the first call studio guys in New York. The Brecker brothers walk in and go into the control room, waiting for the rhythm track to finish. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, what am I doing here? and a guy walks by and puts a piece of paper on the music stand.
Oh, boy.
Right.
I didn't read.
Yeah.
And so I kind of whispered to the bass player over the backline.
Right.
I don't read.
Yeah.
And he starts laughing. Like I'm kidding. And I think he then realized he saw the panic in my face.
Yeah.
And he goes, wow, you're serious. I'm serious. And he looks at his bass chart.
Right.
And he turns back around. He goes, Alan, it's a disco beat.
Oh, cool.
Because this was 75-ish.
Oh, okay. So you were taking lessons. You know, I didn't start with Joe till 80. So you were there 5 years before I was with Joe.
So we met up there. I was visiting.
Yes.
Wait, I want to hear the end of the story.
Yeah.
Hold
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's
too good of a story.
Who was the bass player? Do you remember who the bass
yes,
player
I
was?
do. Francesco Centano.
Oh, wow.
Major. Everyone was the top call. And I'm sitting there like this punk kid. Like,
well, that's amazing.
It was amazing. Okay, my heart's like, you know, out of my chest. I'm so nervous.
Right.
I'm looking at the guys. These are the names I'm looking at on the credits of albums that I listen to, you know.
Wow, how exciting.
So he turns around, he goes, Alan, it's a disco beat, and there's a stop for 2 beats only.
Okay.
And that kind of got it. And then he said, the next stop, it's over because it's only a 30-second spot.
Oh, wow.
And I remember what it was. It was for New Country Yogurt. Okay.
Wow.
So he said, just watch me. And instead of looking at the chart, I'm looking over the baffling at him. And he's playing his bass. So he goes, when I do this, stop. When I do it again, start. The third time I do it, stop and stop. Okay.
Oh my God.
Now a voice comes into the headphones. Okay, guys, ready? You know, and suddenly I hear a click track.
2 bars.
I never played to a click track.
Oh, not only the chart, a click as well.
I'm like,
wow.
This is a whole new world. And I'm saying, once I hear the click, I'm like, my career's over. This is it.
Well, obviously not.
I'm gonna cement the fact that I tried one time, you know. So anyway, the click goes, and someone else counted off the song, and it was take 1.
Yeah, and you're done.
And I did it. I don't know how. I watched Francesco. I stopped. I started. I stopped. It was over.
Yeah. Awesome.
And the guy in the headphones goes, all right, thank you guys. You could go.
Just like that.
That was it.
And I think I was probably shaking.
That's awesome. What a story. That's amazing.
I walked from that studio. It was in the Times Square area. Yeah. I walked from there. I remember asking weeks before, months maybe, about a drum teacher to learn how to read. Right. And this is what happened just at that point. I walked directly to Modern Drum Shop, to Joe's, and I asked him if he would teach me.
Right.
And so when I saw you at the Modern Drum Shop, you were taking a lesson, and I was just visiting Joe,
hanging out. I think I remember that. And you were going, and that was the little store, because then all his stores started getting bigger. But I remember the first store was I think it might have been 3 flights upstairs, and you go into this small room, open the door, and you go to he'd had all his drumsticks in those little shelves that he had, those little cubbies. And then you go in that door, and he had the 2 pads set up with the little Slingerland drum set there with the headphones, and you do the charts with them, and you do the lessons sitting down with them. Fred, you'd sit right next to Joe, and he would do Alan. When I was with Joe, and I'm sure we used to do match grip, and then you have us do a traditional grip.
Oh, nice.
Do the whole thing.
Well, I don't remember doing both, but
wow.
The one thing I do remember with Joe was a pretty funny thing, though. Like you said, we start, jokes aside. We would start the lesson on pads, on drum pads, sitting next to each other.
Right. Yeah.
And what struck me funny was he had a handlebar mustache. It was huge.
Yes.
And as we were playing and looking down on the George Stone book,
he had this thing going.
Yeah, you could see his mustache peripherally. I could, and it was moving like back and forth. And I'm like, playing.
Yeah.
It was funny.
He loved the George Stone book. I remember that too. The George Stone book and the Louis Belson book and the Buddy Rich book were his.
That's right.
There were the books. So
and his book. His
his book. I mean,
Great
and he
book.
was like crazy to it, and he would demonstrate some things and the way he played and around those drums, how fast he was to blow my mind because I didn't play anything like that. And he played like, you know, he would do that one-handed thing from the rack tom to the floor tom that used to always blow my mind. I'd be like, what the hell is going on here, man? You know,
plus his brushwork.
Yeah, he was something,
phenomenal.
man. Yeah. Really, really great. So I mean, so that's remarkable. So you were with him for not a long time, a couple of years. You took lessons with him. Is that what you did? Not even.
I think a year.
Okay, well, you got what you needed, right?
I did, and I think I helped him in one way. Once I started doing the charts, and remember he had the number 1, 2, and 3 fills,
right,
you know,
right,
and everything was jazz time, so it was ding, 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 ding,
yeah, right,
boom. The number 1 fill was
right.
So after a few months of doing that, I asked Joe, could I put my own fill? Do I have to do the number 1 fill? You know, do I have to do that?
Yeah.
His mustache moved, and he was like, "Go ahead, show me."
Yeah.
And so you know, I was incorporating like Ginger Baker or Mitch Mitchell.
Yeah.
Not the typical number 1, 2, or 3 fills, and he kind of got a kick out of it. He smiled. At least he smiled. But the way I think I changed things up there a little was once we were in the charts and everything was swinging. Yeah. And I said to him, you know, Joe, there's a few bands out there that you could get charts from. They're horns, there's accents, but they're more contemporary.
Right.
I think some of these students might enjoy that.
So,
sure. You know, and I got him Tower of Power.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I got him Chicago in Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Of course. Yep.
And I believe a few years later, I'm pretty sure he had Tower of Power charts.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's cool.
So after that, I mean, I met you. I'm curious. How did you and Carmine connect? I mean, what led you to? Because you guys really had it was almost like, you know, sometimes bass players and drummers have almost like a husband and wife thing, man. Marriage. It's like a relationship that is really special, you know. And you guys played like you were a team. It seemed to me.
Yeah,
like we were doing everything. And a really great one too, man. I mean, he's a fantastic bass player. You're a great drummer. So that.
Dave, I just want to let people know, for those who don't, he's talking about obviously Carmine Rojas, who played with a long time, just in case people weren't picking up on who that was. So go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Andy. So you know, and I know maybe I'm jumping ahead here, Andy, and you know, but I'm really curious about how that came about, because you guys really had such a great thing. And on a lot of levels, you guys just kept on getting bigger and bigger and doing more cooler stuff. And he worked with great musicians. And, you know, that's really powerful. When I look back and see those things and then kind of have a perspective on it now from where I'm at, it's really special, really special.
Yeah, it's an interesting story how we kind of met. My breakthrough gig, what I did was I would read the Village Voice every Wednesday or Friday, whenever it came out. And in the back of the Village Voice was Musicians Wanted. And this is 70s again. This is in the 70s, maybe late 70s. And I answered an ad for Nona Hendricks.
Sure, from LaBelle.
Yeah, from Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells.
Yeah.
And I won't get into the auditions, but I got the gig, right? And In the band was Eddie Martinez.
Yeah.
You know, Addicted
Great.
to Love, Robert Thomas. You could go on for months with that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, the bass player was Val Burke. He was in Spooky Tooth.
Okay.
Spooky Tooth.
Right. Right.
Great bass player too. Jose Rossi on percussion. He's in Weather Report.
Wow.
Went on to Weather Report.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Pat LaBelle.
Yeah.
But Carmine wasn't there at that point. But I got very close with Eddie Martinez. And I only spent a few months with Nona, and they were just about to record, but I was in another band. I was like being paid to rehearse with them because I didn't want to be a band member. It was called Bullseye. And they got a deal on CBS. And while I was with Nona, Bullseye got the deal, and they offered me a cut of the publishing, April Blackwood, money I never thought I'd have in my hand in my lifetime.
Right.
And so I took the Bullseye thing was like a rock thing. It was kind of like Foreigner.
Okay,
Foreigner,
cool.
yeah. So I told Nona I had to leave because I'm going to go with this band Foreigner. But I stayed in touch with Eddie Martinez the whole time.
Yeah.
And he did demos. And he asked me to play on the demos. He eventually got a record deal, and I played on a lot of the record, and Steve Ferroni played on the record. But after the Bullseye morphed into a half British, half American band called Electra 5. Bullseye did a tour, an album. It got good reviews, but it got caught up in when the new wave thing was starting. And the hard rock thing kind of took a back seat.
For a bit.
Yeah, and Duran was a thing.
Right.
So Bullseye broke up and morphed into this band with the British lead singer, and it was called Electra 5. And we had connections to do a record in Germany. We got a deal in Germany immediately, and I'm at this studio in the suburbs of Frankfurt called Bad Homburg, right? I can't remember the name of I can't remember the name of the studio, but there were two beautiful studios on each side of the building. And one day we're taking a break, and by the front door there's like a pool table, and we're just hanging out. And in walks this Puerto Rican guy with an afro like this big, and he hears us speaking, and he goes, "Hey, you guys from the States?" I go, yeah. He goes, "You sound like from you New Yorkers." I go, yeah. And then he comes over to me and shakes my hand and goes, "Carmine Rojas."
Yeah.
Now, I only knew his name through Eddie. I never met him.
Right.
Carmine Rojas. And I'm saying to myself, I think that's Eddie's friend. And then I said, "I'm Alan Childs." And he goes, "Alan Childs? Did you play on Eddie Martinez's demos?"
How about that?
I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Shit, I thought you were black." That was our introduction.
Yeah.
And we couldn't stop talking to each other. And
that's Carmine.
Yeah. So we just made a quick pact that when we were both back in the States,
we'll get together.
Me, him, and Eddie would get together, come to my house, because I saved up money for clips, Cornwall speakers that I could blast us out, and that was how I met Carmine.
Wow.
It's just,
and the rest
just a few years later, or right away, you're playing with them in John Waite's band? I mean, is that pretty soon after that, right?
That was a couple of years later. Yeah, that took a little while. I ran into him on the street by Manny's one day. And
where everybody did that. It seemed like, I got to tell you, that kind of thing happened to me with the two guys I play with, Rob and Eric. I was up in New York. I might have been taking a lesson with Joe, and I went over to Alex's Music and Manny's. And I remember this day because I saw Steve Stevens hanging out there, and I remember looking at Steve's shoes, because Steve was like wearing these stiletto heels, and I was like, whoa. But it was like, I didn't really know who he was at the time, but I was reading enough. So he had a little bit of something going on there. But I remember when I was walking out of Manny's, Rob Hyman and Eric Bazillion were they were standing outside. I didn't even know them then. And I walked by and I went, they're the two guys from Baby Grand, right? And I was going to say something to them, but they don't want to be bothered with me. So I left, but I'll never forget that because like every time I would go to Manny's or Alex's or that 48th Street, I'd run into either somebody I knew or somebody that I knew of. I mean, you could almost go over there and try to find a gig. You know, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Good times. Good times.
Really good times, man. It was like the Hang, you know, something else, man.
So that's how I met Carmine.
That's a great story, man.
And he got me the audition for John Waite. He said, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm just doing, like some recording and playing for bands that don't have a drummer for showcases." And I was doing that. I was busy all the time, but I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do, which was to be in a band and be on tour and
doing that all the time.
that was my thing. But so when I got the John Waite thing, and away we went.
That was a great band. Wasn't Chuck playing? Chuck Kentis playing?
No, that was Tommy Mandel.
Tommy Mandel was in that. Oh, both great. You know,
who later went on to Bryan Adams.
Bryan Adams, yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Chuck Kentis came in
with
on the
Julian Lennon thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw both. So I actually, because Carmine, anytime he was playing, he would invite me over and we'd hang a little bit, even if I only saw him for a little while. But because he had that connection with Eric and Rob from Baby Grand, he played in that band for a bit. Yeah. So, and then we also have that also mutual connection to David Prater, our friend David Prater. You did driving school, didn't you? Play with that band with Doug Worthington?
It wasn't called driving school at that
point. What was that called?
Dutch Angles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was way later.
Yeah. Well, you did a bunch of stuff. So, Andy, you did a lot of research. You probably have some questions here, and I'm like bogarting my time with Alan.
It's your show, Dave.
Your show.
Hey, I got a story. I got a story that you probably would appreciate.
I love it. Go for it, bud.
Yeah.
I used to go to the Fillmore all the time, Fillmore East, and one of my favorite bands was Humble Pie.
Oh yeah.
So the first time I was
Jerry Shirley.
Yeah, I was living in Brooklyn, and I would take the Canarsie line to 14th Street and walk backward to the Fillmore. And the first time Humble Pie played, I went and I had no money. I just had enough money for the train, and I couldn't get in. I tried to sneak in, which I found out how to do later. But at that night I couldn't get in, so I sat around the corner by the fire entrance, the doors that, in case there was a fire, and I put my ear to the door, and I listened to Humble Pie, and I went home.
What year would that have been, Al?
What's that?
What year would that have been?
Like 69, maybe?
Yeah.
So 18 years later, you're playing with Peter Frampton on stage with Bowie.
But then the next time I saved money, and I stole quarters out of my stepfather, who was a cop. I stole quarters out of his Globe bank. And I got in, and it was the Humble Pie Live at the Fillmore concert.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And there's a point where Steve Marriott's talking, and I go, "Yeah!" And it's on the record. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna go.
Anyway,
you get royalties for that?
I'm not anymore.
One of my all-time favorite albums of all time.
Oh, yeah.
That live record when they do 4-Day Creep. It's like Jerry was just, a drummer's drummer to me. I love the way he played. That whole band was just remarkable. And I saw them all the time when they came to Philly, and I mean, I love them. I read that book. We had a book called the Best Seat in the House. Best Seat in the House. Terrific book. Great read, man. It's a really great read. Oh man, that's cool.
So cool. Let me finish the story.
Yeah.
So the night after we saw them at the Fillmore, they had a gig on Long Island at OBI, it was called, the Oak Beach Inn, all the way out on Long Island. And I had a friend that was a little bit of a criminal. Like he called me up. He called me up the next night. He goes, Alan, I know you want to go see Humble Pie again. Come downstairs in back of your building at 7. And, just come in the back of your building. I go down at 7. Nobody drove yet. We weren't driving. And a car pulls up. The window goes down. And it's my friend Chuck. I was like, where'd you get the car? And then I look. And it's been popped. The ignition was popped. He stole the car. And he said, come on, we're going to Long Island to see Humble Pie. I got in the car. We went to Long Island.
Yeah.
Here's the funny part. Before Humble Pie went on, there was an opening act. I don't remember who it was. I went to the restroom. When I went to the restroom, there was a door opposite the restroom, which was the dressing room. And it was Steve Marriott. And I'm about to walk into the bathroom, and I'm turning my head, and I see Steve Marriott.
You're like, whoa.
And I'm like you said about the Steve Stevens shoes, I'm like looking at Steve Marriott's like outfit, and look at those boots. Like, and he looks at me and he goes, you want a slice of pizza, mate? And I'm like, yeah. I was super shy, but I said, yeah. And there I am. The whole band's in there. They give me a slice of pizza.
God.
I didn't talk to anybody, and I wasn't even halfway finished. The road manager goes, you're going to have to leave. They're going to go on in about 5 minutes.
Oh, my God.
And that was it. Okay. Now, fast forward, to 1987. That was 19. So the Fillmore album probably was 69.
70.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. And, so fast forward to 1987, and I get the call for Bowie, and they tell me who's in the band, and I'm like, Peter Frampton is in the band. I wonder if he'll remember me. But
wow.
We had pizza together back in the day.
yeah.
Wow.
We shared a slice of pizza.
There are some great photos that I guess I saw. I guess Carmine had put them up of those rehearsals for the Glass Spiders tour. Some great photos of Frampton, you, Carmine, the band. I guess was Earl playing guitar on that one too? Who was the other guitar player?
No, the other guitar player was Carlos Alomar.
Oh, right. Yeah. Great. Wow.
And wasn't it Carlos who originally told you about the opening that Bowie possibly had for a drummer?
Yes, Carlos. It was at the China Club one night, and the Dutch Angles, we would just finished the Julian tour, and we wanted to keep playing, so we put this little band together, and David Prater, who's a drummer, also sang. So he sang, I played drums, we did Dutch Angle material, which was driving school at one point, but we did their material, which was great. I loved playing that in that band. And Carlos, we only did 3 or 4 gigs in the tri-state area while we were off tour with Julian the first time. And Carlos would come down to see Carmine, and I guess he kind of liked how I played. And one night, he sat in with us. We did a 4-top song, Shake Me, Wake Me. And it was fun playing with Carlos. And we eventually ended up in the back office room of the China Club where all the stuff goes on. And so I'm standing next to Carlos, and Carlos goes, hey, Alan, would you like to play with Bowie? And I was like slightly in shock, and I was like, you repeat that? Bowie, would you want to play with Bowie? I went, yeah.
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
And so I didn't hear anything for days and days, and I get a call from the accounting firm that handles Bowie, John Wade, the Stones, Bruce, Julian, John Wade. They were called at the time. I think they were Sound Advice. I think it was called.
Yeah.
And I get a call from the main guy because he knows me now because I played with Julian and John Wade. So he calls me and he goes, hey, Alan, Duran Duran saw you play, and their drummer is out of commission. I think he had a nervous breakdown back in those days. And they're looking for a drummer, and they saw you with Julian, and they'd like to have a play with you in L.A.
Wow.
And I was, a little excited, but then I said to him, but Bill, Carlos Alomar mentioned Bowie to me.
Yeah.
And, it's no contest there.
Yeah, right.
It was like, I want to wait and see what happens with Bowie. And Bill gets a little angry at me. Why, I don't know. But he goes, Alan, I have the list of drummers in front of me for Bowie. You're not even on the list. The guy, number one guy is Terry Bozzio.
Oh. Yeah.
I said, okay, but Carlos mentioned something to me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm going to call you back, I said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I called. Now, I'm not that friendly yet with Carlos. It was just those one or two discussions we had. So I called Carmine. And I said, Carmine, I just got a call from Sound Advice. They want me to come to L.A. to play, have a tryout with Duran Duran. He goes, I'll call you right back, Alan. And he calls Carlos. And then Carmine calls me back. He goes, Alan, I'm so sorry. Carlos was supposed to call you like 3 or 4 days ago to tell you you were in the band with Bowie.
Oh, my God.
And now I have to call Sound Advice. His name was Bill. And tell Bill, hey, listen, Bill, I got the word that I'm in the band with Bowie.
Wow.
And he got a little upset. Maybe because he wasn't in the loop, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how that happened.
Wow. Yeah, those guys were fun. Did you happen to know Eric Barrett by chance? He was one of those. Eric
Guitar
Barrett. He was a more kind of management guy.
He worked with Hendrix.
He worked with Hendrix, right? He worked with Jimi Hendrix.
I have met him.
Yeah, and I met him. I guess when I met him, I forget. Maybe it was. I forget what band I met him through, but he was on the road with somebody. But he had like this amazing, he was Jimi Hendrix. It might have been Jimi Hendrix tour manager for a while. And he owned one of Jimmy's Flying V's. I remember he had a Flying V of Jimmy's. But and then I think I saw him later on when we did something with Foreigner down the line. But I just wondered if you knew him or not. You met him. He's one of those guys that would just show up and, but he was with everybody. And the Bowie story is mind blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's
cool,
man.
Let's talk more about Bowie. So you get the invite, you find out you're in the band, but you still haven't met Bowie at this point. You've never. Now you've toured with John Wade at this point. You've toured with Julian Lennon. You've played some big gigs. But this is David Bowie. This is the next level. Do you remember?
Yes, I met him. I remember the first time I met him. It was an amazing moment because, man, is he considerate.
Yeah.
So we learned before the Bowie tour proper, there was a press conference tour, and that was going to 14 countries, playing in a club, and David would do a press conference. The surprise for the fan club members who were invited was that the band was going to play 3 songs, but they didn't know that. But for instance, New York, we played the Cat Club. I remember.
Right.
Yeah. So we learned 3 songs before David got there, and he walked in the room. We already knew the songs now. The band knew the songs. He walked in the room. They introduced me to him, and I was like, I didn't freeze, but I didn't know what to say. I was like, when I shook his hand, I went, I have all your albums. I didn't know what to say.
Oh my God.
And he, he's so cool. He knows people. Kind of get with.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to the instruments, and what song was it? Bang Bang, I believe was the song we were doing. It was an Iggy Pop song, and he's facing the band. So the band's set up, and he's looking at us, and once we got into the song, I this usually doesn't happen. I started to think, what if he doesn't like me? Or does he like me? And I'm playing, and these thoughts are coming into my mind, which those type of thoughts usually do not come into my mind when I'm playing drums. I'm just in it. As if he knew what I was thinking. He looks at me halfway through the song, because I'm looking at him. I don't care. I'm playing, and I'm looking at him, and he looks at me, and he goes.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
Wow.
What a guy.
Wow.
Yeah. Just exactly what you needed at the right moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those who are only listening to us and not watching right now, Alan just held up his thumb. David gave Alan the thumbs up in that moment. And, wow.
Yeah,
and
it was
the whole, it's all your mind's, everything's cool then. Hey, David likes me.
It looks like I have a chance. I have a chance. Yeah. It was fun.
Wow. And that was like, back then, there were when that tour came to Philadelphia, you played JFK Stadium. I mean, that was a stadium tour.
It was a stadium tour at first. We did America twice. We did a stadium tour first. We did Europe. The very first thing we did was Europe.
Yeah.
Then we came back, had a couple of weeks off, and went and did the States. We went around and did stadiums first, and then arenas second. And when we played Madison Square Garden, I mean, for me,
sure.
I saw Zeppelin there. I saw the Stones there. It was like,
you must have been.
I was so crazed. I kissed the fucking stage. I was like, couldn't believe it.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I could only imagine what you were feeling like at that time. And even on breaks, like, you're like pinching yourself. I mean, you're totally deserving of that gig. And but it's those things that happen where the stars line up, where that moment happened and you met the right people and all that thing happened. But then you still got to deliver. I mean, you got to bring it.
True.
And, you have to deliver, and you did. So it must have been an awesome feeling.
It was a special time.
Was Squeeze on some of those dates?
Yes, I have a Squeeze story.
Yeah, let's hear it, because I have some Squeeze stories too. Yeah.
That band I was in Europe and Germany, Electrified, which was half British, half American.
Right.
When we finished the album, we went on tour.
Yeah.
We opened for Squeeze for 10 shows.
Wow.
This is 80-ish, 81. And I loved Squeeze. Argy Bargy album. Pulling Muscles from a Shell.
Yep.
I love this song. I just love that album. And I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk to Glenn Tilbrook. Just talk to him.
Did he ever talk to you?
So we're in sound check, and they finish, and I walk over to him, and we're opening up, and I'm not a stranger really, And I introduced myself, and I asked him a question. He was very standoffish. He did not want to talk, so he was a little rude actually, and
rude.
And I was like, I walked away and never attempted to talk to him again. I spoke with the drummer a few times. Nice guy.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'll never forget that Glenn Tilbrook thing. It really, it was imprinted in my brain. I was like, why be like that?
Alan, we toured with them. Our Nervous Night just came out, and it was just starting to really catch fire. It was like really starting to sell well. It was we did a 5-week tour, and I think it was in July. And their record was they were with A&M Records, and they were having, I think it was A&M, and they were really having trouble getting the record out. And they were really we were out. And so it was the band called The Truth, and then it was the Hooters, and it was Squeeze. And we were in the middle of these two British bands. And Squeeze is almost like they had it out for us. The only one that I ever talked to in 5 weeks doing like, I think at least 4 weeks of shows with Jules. Jules would be nice. Jules Holland would be nice.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other guys, you'd think, you think that like I'm going, do I stink? What's the problem here with this? You know, I mean, but I found out it wasn't just me, but it was like the guys in the band. They turned our monitors off when we were in Toronto, and we were doing really well on that tour, and really selling. And we could always tell by how the merge was doing, and the reaction from the audience. And they were pissed. They were not happy, and they turned our monitors off when we were in Toronto once. And the only time I ever saw Rybe Hyman, he was like banging on the production manager's trailer, like, what the fuck is this? Turn them up. But they I don't know what their issue was. I'm glad it wasn't only me. I'm sorry that happened to you, but the same.
I'm not a vengeful kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I got my revenge.
Oh
boy.
Yeah,
and I'm not like that. But that stayed with me so long. Yeah. I was like, wow. If there was ever a point I could get back at him in a
nice. I got
nothing physical. Just mentally.
Yeah.
So what happened was, that was 80-81. Fast forward to 1987.
Yeah.
Not the Metal, Giant Stadium, New Jersey. We did 2 or 3 nights there. A strange coupling of bands. There was Lisa and the Cult Jam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Squeeze.
Yeah. Right.
So the first day of shows, every band, we're all in the lobby. There's a hotel on Central Park West, the Mayflower. Yeah. We're all in the lobby of the Mayflower and, going to our respective buses. And everyone's hanging out for a while because it's we still got 5 minutes to get on the bus. Yeah. And I see Glenn Tilbrook. And I walk over to him. And I said, Mr. Tilbrook, I don't know if you remember, but we shared the bill in Germany in 1981, maybe. And he looks at me and he goes, I don't remember. He goes, do you want a picture or something?
He said that to you?
Yeah. And I didn't have a camera on me, and no selfie.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said, no, I don't want a picture. I said, all right, well, take care. I said, I just want to let you know, you're opening for me tonight.
Yes, boom.
You want a picture?
That's as evil as I get, okay?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's a good one.
We had a similar thing with Geldof, who when he said, "Who the fuck are the Hooters with Live Aid?" And then when we opened that show, and then when we went to Germany to play, I think in Hanover and Bonn, he was opening for us, which was pretty funny. I didn't have a moment to say that to him, but we all thought it was pretty funny because he was like, "Who the fuck are these guys?" Which I can understand too, because he was the promoter. He's just saying that, but that I love that story, man. That's great. Well, you got your revenge in a good way, and that's the proper way to do it. It was very good, very good,
very classy, very classy. No,
exactly.
Classy revenge.
Yeah,
right. And they were playing. They were playing here in Vegas recently. I was considering maybe trying again, but
it's over. He doesn't have the capacity to even understand both those guys. His wife at the time, I don't know if he's still married, but I remember playing the Greek theater and I walked up and I was like, "How you doing?" Because sometimes she would say hello, but she was always pretty miserable. And she goes, "We're humans. We're put on this earth to suffer." And I went, "Okay, well, you have a good day today."
Just getting back to that Bowie tour a little bit, Glass Clear Tour '87. You mentioned Madison Square Garden and getting to play there. And I mean, it was a pretty ambitious tour. I mean, the sets were long sets and the dancers and everything. Do you have any like just specific memories of the tour that stand out?
Playing wise and the show wise were pretty linear. It was always great. You know, the performance part. Me personally, I could have done without the dancers, but you know, it's David's gig, and there were a few songs that the dancers exited from the stage, and it was great, you know. But it was a great tour. It was great playing. What stands out of my mind is the fact that every once in a while after the show, we'd go back to the hotel, and every once in a while my phone would ring. Let me tell you the first time this happened. It's pretty funny. The phone rang, and it was the first or second gig of the show of the tour. Hello, Alan. It's David, and I go. I'm thinking, who do I know in the crew? Is David? Is the somebody guitar tech is David? Because Bowie never called me.
Yeah.
You know, so I go, David, who?
Yeah.
And he goes, David, the singer in the band, you dummy. Well, anyway, and he would occasionally call me, or me and Carmine, or me and Peter to go out.
Yeah.
Like he would want to get out of the hotel after the show.
Right.
And for some reason, he'd like to have me come along with him.
That's great.
Yeah. And one of the memorable nights was L.A.
Yeah.
He did one of those calls after the show, and he said, "I'll see you at midnight in the lobby." And we go in a limo, and he goes, "We're going to make some stops along the way on our way to an after-hours club." And the first stop is Pee Wee Herman. Now, I think these were obligations he had through management, that it would be nice if he hung out with this person and this person. And then the second stop was, what was Sylvester Stallone's Amazon wife, the big girl?
Richard
Nielsen.
Yeah.
He was the second stop.
Wow.
And so we picked both of them up, and we go to this after-hours club. And I realized pretty early on, the reason I was there was to keep Pee Wee company while David worked on Bridget.
He's wingman.
That's how I saw it.
Maybe you were the wingman. Yeah.
Bad as it may, you're hanging out with David Bowie and Peter Frampton, you know, after hours clubs with Sylvester Stallone's wife and Pee Wee Herman. That's a fucking great story, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I was trying to talk to Pee Wee, like, you know, I didn't know what to say to him. I was like, Pee Wee, Paul, his name is Paul. Paul, was Jerry Lewis an influence for you? And like, I didn't know what to say. You know?
Right.
It wasn't really that talkative either. I mean, it was a bit of a struggle. I remember I went back to the hotel, but not with David and Bridget. So whatever happened.
Right.
But you know, there were nights like that in Austria. There was a beautiful hotel. It was after the show, and he wanted to have a drink, and I'm sitting with him at the bar, and there's a journalist with a friend. There's all kinds of situations.
Right.
It was just fun. Those little after get together.
That's like one of the biggest tours of our time. It was like, you know, with Bowie. And just I want to segue into just like, because you play with John again, and I'm really sorry because over the last summer we did a couple of shows with this Rick Springfield tour. John was played a couple shows, guys, with us, and I would have loved it if you were playing, but for some reason it wasn't. You were either out doing something at the time, but you weren't playing that night, which would have been great to see you. But you're back playing with John again.
Yeah.
And what a great band. And John is like, he's like as good as he ever has been. I mean, what a voice.
Yeah.
And what a performer. Yeah. And what a superhuman being that guy is. He's really a sweetheart, man. We had a really nice hang, and he was really great. So how'd that come about again?
Yeah, so, you know, in 84, 85, I was with him for a tour and an album. And in the middle of the album, me and Carmine already made a commitment to Julian Lennon to start rehearsals for his very first tour. Right. And we told John, we told him the date we would have to stop recording. And John didn't really have a lot of material ready for the record. So it was a lot of time wasted. And by the time it was time for us to leave, there was only a couple of tracks recorded, and he had to get a whole new band. And that was the last I saw him for many years. So that was 85.
Yeah.
And then I started with Julian. But and then I don't know, many years later, when I moved here 11 years ago. So it must have been 11 years ago. He came through with a package concert tour with Joan Jett, a couple of the Romantics, and I wanted to surprise him and say hi. Yeah. And I'm side stage, and they go on. It was a disaster. The monitors were going in and out. And after 2 songs, John walked off the stage.
Yeah.
Went to his trailer. So I let him cool down, and I wanted to say hi. So I went to the trailer. I knocked on the door, and it was great to see him. And I could tell he was happy to see me. And that was it. And then I hadn't seen him in so long. So fast forward to, I don't know, 3 years ago. I'm at the gym and I get a call, unknown. But for some reason, I'm like, I'm going to pick this one up. I pick it up and I was like, hello? Hey, Alan, it's John. Again, I'm like, John who? He goes, it's John White. I go, oh, wow, man, how you been? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I came to Vegas originally. It's a place I would never thought of living, ever. I mean, but I came here to do a show. And it lasted working. I was 5 or 6 years. In the 5 or 6 years doing the show, I actually got to like it here. Because the Strip is like the Strip. It's a separate entity. The rest of Vegas is suburbs, like any suburb. There's Whole Foods, there's Trader Joe's, there's all the stores you need. But then there's like the Red Rock Canyon State Park, which I go to, and I have my own little trail. I climb one rock or do an edible. I'm up on the, it's kind of cool. And in general, the weather's great, except for the middle of the summer. But anyway, he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, the show I was doing here just closed. Yeah. And he said, do you want to play again? And I said, it took you 33 years to call me. There's a joke, But so it was amazing. But the funny thing was how times change. And from the gigs I was doing in the past years, his road manager called me with the list of songs. And what I did was get the tempo numbers off the record. I got my in-ears, brought a mixer, brought a click track, a tempo machine. And I'm setting up at the first gig in Burbank, and like John walks by and he's going, what are you doing? I'm going, well, I got the tempos and I'm going to click, it'll be perfect. And it goes, Alan, no one uses headphones. We don't use in-ears. Yeah. There's wedges. That's what we're doing. Old school, Alan. Wedges. Yeah. Wow. No click track. Yeah. I was like, what world have I been in? I was like, I was kind of happy. I was happy to do it. Yeah. But and
you sound great, because what I really love, I think I told you, I sent you an email, a message. I heard was it Midnight Rendezvous? What is the song? What's that song that you have? Well, I forget what it was, but you were playing, and I zeroed in on you. Because the sound was your overall drum sound was terrific, and it was just, I could tell it had all to do with the way you were hitting the drums, and I could tell, and I heard you mention that you were old school using the monitors, but just your dynamics, and you were playing hard, but that's your sound was like, whoa, like really off the the map.
Wow,
Good.
thanks.
Really,
Thanks.
really good. Really good.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Yeah.
You know, every gig is a different drum set. It's a backline.
Rentals.
So I just tweak them to my liking and hope for the best, and hope the sound guy is on the money as well.
Yeah.
Hey, before we, because I can't believe we're already getting close to the end here.
I can't believe it.
But I want to make sure, because you guys were talking about John Waite. Alan's on tour with John Waite this summer with Styx and Foreigner. So look up those dates for our fans here in where a lot of our fans are in the Philadelphia, New York area. They're playing PNC Bank Art Center in Homedale on July 23rd, and then Freedom Mortgage Pavilion in Camden on July 28th, plus all over the country. So check out the dates for to see John Waite with Foreigner, and so that's going to be a pretty fun show. Foreigner just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too, so they're going to be in a celebratory mood all summer, I imagine. So,
and this is supposedly their farewell tour. We got dates past the official tour, and the dates are with Styx, but not Foreigner. So maybe they are coming to an end.
Right.
After the summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got in trouble with Jerry Shirley. Speaking of Foreigner.
You did?
What?
A little. I kind of apologized to him, but I'm such a strong Humble Pie fan.
Yeah.
If you remember a year or two ago, he put out a band called Humble Pie.
Oh.
And no one was from Humble Pie.
Yeah.
Not even him.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't play?
No, he had like a hip problem.
Oh.
So it was a band, New York guys. I have nothing against them. I want people to work.
Yeah, but
I messaged. This is how strong I was about Humble Pie. I messaged Jerry and I said,
what the fuck?
How could you do this to the Humble Pie name?
Yeah.
Steve's rolling in his grave. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I had no idea.
And after I did that, I felt so bad because I thought he might have needed the money.
Yeah.
And, and so I wrote him back and apologized. But that's how, strong I felt about Humble Pie. And the Foreigner thing, I hear they're really great.
Yeah, they are.
Even
though not even
Mick Clay.
No Mick. They're all really good, but it's
well, I think
but no one.
Yeah, I feel like the current singer that Foreigner's had, I forget his name. He's been with them for a while. He's been with them for obviously Lou left, forever ago, and this guy's been with them for a while. So,
and he's good.
Yeah, he's
really good.
Hey,
I mean,
Dave and Alan and Fred, I hate to do this, but Rich is going to give us the sign in a minute. We got to wrap this up.
I know. Al, you got to join us. You got to come back. This is you got like great stories.
Yeah, stories.
Hey, let's get Alan's. Rich, let's get Alan's SoundCloud site up on the screen if we can, so people know where they can check out his music. Because Alan, you did your own an album a couple of years ago. I know we don't have time to talk about it, unfortunately, but you did an album a couple of years ago that you played everything, right?
Yeah, I continue to throw these singles out just for fun, and that's what keeps me sane. Recording at home, I try and play everything. I even try and sing, but I do what I can. But it makes me happy, and maybe a couple other people happy.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it, man. Listen, man, you're salt of the earth. You're a really good dude. And I'm so glad and happy. Great things are happening for you, and you deserve it, man. You work really hard. Great player, great human being, and man, all the best, my brother. All the best.
You too,
all
David. You're still a warrior. We're still out there.
Still doing it, man. Still doing it. Our limbs are falling off once in a while, but I was in the gym today a little bit, but we're all good.
Cool.
We're good.
Nice to meet you guys. And
Great to meet you, Al. The great Alan Childs. Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, Al. I'll be in touch. I'll send you the link. Man.
That was awesome.
Great.
And these hours fly by. It's
I had to get him to John because I knew John would probably see this. And John Waite will watch, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about John because John's great.
So let's get John Waite on the podcast, Dave.
There
you
go.
It's my next project. Here we go. Hey, guys.
Thank you to Alan Childs. Thanks to Rich in the studio. For Dave and Fred, I'm Andy. And we'll see you next time on In the Pocket.
David Uosikkinen is in the Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.